I speak my truth in love. I sing my truth in love. I walk in truth, I dream in truth. I am the truth of love. I speak my truth in love. I sing my truth in love. I walk in truth, I dream in truth. I am the truth of love.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Spero Day. And I thought before we listen to any music or even do any teaching, we could do some centering and meditation first, right where you're at, whether you're watching this by a computer screen, a television screen, a phone screen. Maybe you can just create a little sanctuary around yourself, a little quiet zone. And if you're comfortable, follow along with me. Feel free to just maybe close your eyes and just begin to have a somatic awareness. Begin to be aware of your body and just still your body. Let your shoulders fall. Soften your belly and soften your eyes. And just be as relaxed as you can be, still as you can be. Feel your bottom against the chair. Feel your back against it. Feel your feet on the floor. And maybe take 2 deep breaths. And just be still for a moment. Be quiet. Be very present with where you're at right now. What is it you feel you need this morning? Can you pinpoint that? Can your noticer identify that? How is it you feel this morning? Your actual emotions. And by the way, there's no bad emotions. All of our emotions are good. They're part of us. So are you glad? Are you frustrated? Are you lonely? Are you grieving about something? Are you elated about something? Can you identify how you feel? And just as you're still, breathe naturally and just be present in your thoughts and feelings. And then I'll pray in a moment. God, I pray that we would sense your closeness, that we would sense your proximity to us. pray that we would just attune our hearts to our affection to you. It's not about what we believe or don't believe. It's about our attachment and our attunement to you through trust. So may you, Spirit, be present, and as you are present, may we stay open and transparent. May we risk the vulnerability of awakening to something new and something transformative. And I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. May you sense God is close to you today. May you be very in tune with yourself. As you trust God, trust yourself, and as you are trusting yourself, that is part of trusting God.
Certainty, ever present with me in the waiting, faith and hesitating. I breathe you in, breathe you out. I breathe you in, breathe you out. And you are always close, no matter where I go. I am not alone, I give up my control. To be still and know that the whole world you still hold, you hold it together. Christ all around me when my eyes fail to see. Ever present, you give brand new mercy for this brand new morning. I breathe you in, breathe you out, yeah. And I'll remind my soul you are always close, no matter where I go. I am not alone, I give up my control. To be still and know that the whole world you still hold, you hold it together. I breathe you in, breathe you out, 'cause all that I need is here right now. In your presence I breathe you in, breathe you out. 'Cause all that I need is here right now. Your presence is ever present. God, your presence is ever present. Yeah, God, your presence is ever present. God, your presence is ever present. Yeah, and I'll remind my soul, you are always close, no matter where I go. I am not alone, I give up my control. To be still and know that the whole world you still hold, you hold it together. You hold it all together.
Okay, I'm going to describe a logical tactic that a lot of us take. Here it is. There's you, just you, me too. And we do things to gain other people's approval. We do things to make them happy with us. And then we feel pretty good about ourselves, right? Or we think we do. Now, some of us choose this tactic for years. Some of us choose it for a lifetime. Why? Because it seems like a perfectly good strategy to ward off the fear of disapproval and the fear of rejection. And here's the deal, it can actually work. It works in getting people to like us, to approve of us, to validate us. This tactic actually works in avoiding and having others disapprove of us, disapprove of our thoughts, our beliefs, our actions. It actually works. But there is going to come a time when the genuine and true side of our soul realizes that the tactic is not coming from the true essence of ourselves. And when we begin to wake up to that realization, when the constant seeking of approval, this ever people-pleasing, what we think is a good tactic, becomes not good to us at all, and we long to escape it. Because it's just endless. It's more trouble than it's worth. So let's talk about this, and let's reimagine if Christian spirituality actually has something to say about liberating us from this approval stuff. And listen, it can add to it based on a certain Christianity you had. Maybe it was Biblicism or Christian absolutism. Maybe it was rigid doctrinalism, right? This only added to this endless pursuit of people-pleasing because your faith was more about being biblically and religiously behaved over the experience of living spiritually whole. Now, we do know some history from the first century. The historic Jesus, well, he was crucified in the year 30-ish sometime. But by the year 50s of the first century, the Christian church is gaining some legs. Now, not without opposition. There are some people paying a serious price for these new teachings by Christ. There's torture for faith shifting away from their beliefs by turning their affection towards Christ instead of their doctrine. There's excommunication. There's loss of reputation. There's the accusation that you've lost the true faith. I mean, sound familiar? You see, whenever the expanse of love starts to threaten dogmatic orthodoxy, oh, the stones always come out. It's always been that way. It always will be. So when the Christ was Jesus incarnate living among them, He was starting to see the weight that some people carried for this good news of love and grace. In fact, there are a number of occasions where people are sort of saying to Jesus, listen, I like what you're teaching. It makes sense what you're saying. And I'm super drawn to it. But it's just too much for me, man. If I get on your good news train, Jesus, there's going to be some serious hell to pay with my family, with my synagogue, with my faith community. I'm drawn to what you're saying, but I just can't do it. I mean, you start throwing in your family, your community of friends, you drop in the God card and the religion card, and then you mix that with our codependency, our abandonment issues, and all of our people pleasing. It gets really thick. It gets pretty burdensome, doesn't it? And some of you really relate to the people that are saying this to Jesus. Listen, my heart knows the healthy direction to go. I do want to experience the freedom and the peace, but I just can't deal with the conflict. I just can't deal with the rejection. I can't deal with the lack of approval. So by the 50s in the first century, Christianity is spreading to the north in Asia Minor, and one of its leaders, who used to be its greatest persecutor, Saul of Tarsus, who had given his entire life to religious piety, he comes in and he even says, I got my religious piety from my family. At one point, he admits that his whole mission in life is to please this religious piety and to be approved of by his colleagues and his faith community. He even gets vulnerable at one point in his writings and admits, I even thought that kind of life was of God. I thought it was real faith. I thought it was the Spirit, but it wasn't. Isn't it amazing how we can end up thinking that our own codependency, our own people-pleasing, our own God-pleasing, isn't it amazing how we can think it's actually the product of being a virtuous son or daughter or virtuous spouse or partner? We even think it's being a good Christian. But many times we're just really in denial about our own codependency, our own insecure esteem issues, and our own need for approval, and our own fear of rejection. So we spiritualize it. But for Saul of Tarsus, it was working until it wasn't. Until his life collides with love and grace and the liberation that Christ offers, he wakes up and he starts spreading the love and he starts being persecuted for it. It's really an amazing story in the New Testament. And when that happens, he no longer is known by Saul of Tarsus. He's been completely rejected by his faith community. His fellow clergymen want nothing to do with him. His home has rejected him. And he now becomes known as Paul the Apostle. And now he's taking this new Christianity to the Gentiles, people who have no Abrahamic background at all. At this point, they're the only ones who will listen to him. And even them, not always. He takes plenty of beatings for spreading love there too. So around the year 50 or so, Paul is sitting in the southern Greece city of Corinth. And he pens a letter to a new young Christian church in the town of Thessalonica, a church that knew him because at one point he had taught there. And he writes this to them in 1 Thessalonians 6. Take a look at this. As you yourselves know, brothers and sisters, our visit with you wasn't a waste of time. On the contrary, by trusting God, we had the courage to speak the good news in spite of a lot of opposition, although we had already suffered and were publicly insulted in Philippi, as you know. Our teaching isn't out of wrong motives or deception, No. We did it because we trusted God, and it was Him who gave us this work. We aren't trying to please people, but we're hoping to please God, not anyone else. As you know, we never used flattery to manipulate you, and God is our witness that we didn't have ulterior motives. We were not looking for praise from people, not from you or from anyone. You know, when we're looking for approval, it always needs an outside source, and Paul seemingly is pronouncing that. Somehow he's moved beyond needing approval from this outside source, the church folks in Thessalonica, the opposition there that disagrees with him. He doesn't need that anymore. And trying to please other people, it means our enoughness has to prop itself up. It needs it from an outside source. And whenever we reach something in the outside world where we need it, man, it just shuts. We're just set up to be disappointed when we need this approval from the outside, an outside source. The very thing we're trying to avoid, we end up creating. And somehow with Paul, with all that opposition, with all that criticism, with all that rejection, he seems to be at peace with himself. He's living the way he wants. And the New Testament certainly hints that he had to take a journey there, even for him. Sometimes undoing old patterns, it definitely takes work and it takes some time. But when we need unhealthy approval and we're given to people pleasing, we now set ourselves up to live a life that we don't even particularly want, but still we will fit to what other people want, because we don't dare take a chance on something that might bring that disapproving stare or rank low on the social status meter. You know, we do what's expected of us. We do what others want for us. And in return, we hope they approve of us. Somehow Paul gets to a deeper place beyond that. Now, just to ask the question, you might be thinking, well, listen, why not seek approval? I mean, what's so bad about that? Well, there's a number of reasons, but here's the one I'll offer. When we become approval-seeking people, that becomes an obstacle to you becoming your true self. When we seek that approval, we just miss the opportunities to learn, to grow, of how to approve of ourselves and not need that. You miss all of that. I mean, look what Paul says here in verse 2. By trusting God, we had the courage to speak the good news in spite of a lot of opposition. So he had a lot of reasons to not want to go there, but he is so attuned to God through trust that he's experiencing courage. Courage, when you're experiencing courage, it is a very centering experience. He's attuned to God, he's attuned to himself. And when we're in that approval mode, it's not about courage or being centered. It's actually our anxiety. It's trying to protect our ego, our esteem. And many times we don't even realize it. We're just trying to keep all of our stuff together. So let's do a little soul searching right now, right? I mean, if you find yourself doing things, voicing certain things that are important to you, if you find yourself not doing that, or you find yourself anxious about new things, looking to be in a comfort zone, if you're kind of stuck worrying about what others expect of you, if you need this approval and you'll do everything to avoid rejection, you're on the road to denying who you truly are. So let's make this very practical, and a good place to start is asking some pretty tough and deep questions of yourself. And here they are. Is your need for approval, is it a fear of rejection? Is it keeping you from doing something that expresses the true you? Are you just saying yes to too much? Many times, right, we just can't say no. Do you feel fear before telling someone in your life who's meaningful to you about a major decision you're going to make? Do you change your actions based on fear or how another person is going to react? Can you identify anything in your life that you regret doing or not doing, and realizing in hindsight that it wasn't aligned with what you really wanted? You wanted to do something, but you didn't because you needed someone else's approval, or you worried about their disapproval. Do you inadvertently avoid your truth when speaking to someone because you fear their opinion about your opinion? Do you let other people's opinions dictate the choices you want to make? You know, when we really go deep and probe these questions, it can begin to awaken something. Now, there is a deep spiritual and human way to transform in this. We can actually grow. So let me show you another very important thing here that's key to how we can navigate approval. Look what Paul says in verses 3 and 6. Our teaching isn't out of the wrong motives or deception. We did it because we trusted God. We aren't trying to please people, but we're hoping to please God, not anyone else. We never used flattery to manipulate you. We didn't have ulterior motives. We weren't looking for praise from people, not from you or from anyone. You know, when I read this, this is a guy who is drawing healthy boundaries in his life. This is someone who's very attuned spiritually to God, attuned to himself. Paul is very in touch with his feelings, his needs. He's very in touch with his mind, his soul, and his heart, just his whole space. He's not in this I'm not enough mode or I want you to like me mode, which we do see at times. But in this place, he's completely centered and he's practicing accepting himself. So here's some actual ways to navigate this endless pursuit of approval. Here's one. Let me offer this. Continue to grow the knowing of yourself. Grow, stretch, and deepen the knowing of yourself. When others' acceptance of you impacts how you think about things or what you believe or how you need to perform or even decisions that you need to make or how you are going to spend time, you lose complete awareness of yourself. You lose awareness of what's important to you, what drives you, what really matters to you. What could that lead to? You might end up being stuck in a job that you don't particularly like because someone else thinks you should have had it. And you never give energy to what really matters to you. So start asking yourself questions like, what do I value? What keeps me awake at night? How is it that I might prefer to spend my time? Start to listen. Get your noticer out in your life. Align your actions with your values, your principles, your goals. And when you live in line with what you value, you become truer to yourself. And life just becomes much more peaceful to live. Well, here's one that I had to really learn in my life. And part of it deals with my upbringing and some of the emotional detachment that was in my childhood. But here it is. Normalize disapproval. You know, we often get upset with ourselves about something that literally happens to everyone else. I mean, do you know anyone who isn't approved of at some point in their life? I mean, everybody experiences somebody not happy with them. And so why is it we think that we should live a life where no one ever disapproves of us? So disapproval is just a normal thing. It's normal. And I know when you're experiencing it, it feels so abnormal. You want everything not to feel that way. But the more you and I, from our heart to our head, from our head to our heart, if we can just go, okay, disapproval, rejection, these are normal parts of a human life, the human experience. I'm not saying it doesn't hurt. No. It can hurt to, when we experience the rejection of people we love, that hurts. So when I say it's normal, I'm not saying nonchalant, but when I say, when we normalize it, it helps us to accept it better, healthier. So just normalize disapproval. You're normal. So here's something you can actually practice. Practice being assertive. One good way to overcome anxiety and fear is to actually practice the behavior that you're anxious about. The point is that by purposefully collecting harmless disapproval, right, you can come to realize that nothing important changes. So accept that now you're able to assert yourself. You can speak up. Assert your opinions. Assert what you think about things. If you really feel you don't disagree, you really feel like you disagree with what someone is saying or an opinion they're expressing, certainly be kind and nice, but you can speak your opinion. You know, I don't see it that way, or I feel differently about that. So one of the things you and I can do is begin to practice asserting you, your thoughts, your opinions, your values, your interests, your opinions. Speak them, again, kindly and gently. And I'll tell you what, the more you do that, the more you practice that and actually see that many times it's inconsequential, or if it is consequential, if you do, you somehow survive that, it just begins to center you. You just gain a new kind of comfortability and trusting of yourself. Spiritually, I think you see, okay, this is how I'm supposed to, this is me being truly who I am. So practice, try it this week, practice asserting yourself. Okay, here is the last one. Seek after what you want to become. Now, I guess here's the bad news of that. What we seek, we are. But here's the good news. What we seek, we can become. Now, Richard Rohr talks a lot about this. You see, authentic Christian spirituality emphasizes a real mutuality between the one who sees and what can be seen. There is a relationship between the heart, the mind of the seer, and then what we end up paying attention to. What I am, you also are, and so is the world. Creation, I think, is one big giant symphony of mutual belongingness. And so to understand this, I must know that who I am and that I am and what I can become, at least in part. That's the very thing I'm seeking. In fact, that is what makes me seek. But many of us don't realize this good news, that God cannot be found out there until he's first found in here, in ourselves. Then we can almost naturally see God in others and in all of creation too. You see, what you seek is what you are. The search for God and the search for our true self they're really the same search. It makes St. Francis's all-night prayer make more sense, where he prays, "Who are you, God, and who am I?" I think this is the most honest prayer any of us could offer. You see, a heart transformed by this realization of attuning to God and this realization of unionizing with God, this experience of oneness that only love in here, in me, can spot and enjoy love out there. Fear, constriction, resentment, right? These are obstructions from us loving, and they never take us there. They don't take us anywhere good, really. And so the great paradox in Christian spirituality is this realization is that somehow when you want to see this, if that's what you want to see, you'll see it. The central practice of Christian spirituality, it's that we must remain in love, as Jesus talks about in John 15. And when we're eager to love, then we see love in the world around us. When we're eager to show peace and give peace, we see peace. But when we see rightness and division, when we judge, when there is a right way and a wrong way, when there is those who are included and those who are not, that's what we will see. Faith is more than this esoteric doctrinal found out in outer space that I need to know, believe, and even please. But salvation really is an internal thing. It's something that happens in mind, body, and soul. And it happens internally through our trust in unionizing with God. Jesus didn't say, be the one who is right. Jesus said, be the one who loves. And when you and I seek after that, that takes us on the road to who and what we will become. Well, let me say a prayer before we go. God, I often say that attuning spiritually, growing spiritually, or I should say deepening spiritually, is more about what we see and how we see. It's more about awakening. It's less about believing and knowing. It's more about awakening. It's how we see. So I pray that some of us would move towards this road of rest of people-pleasing. Help us to continue to practice acceptance. Help us to normalize disagreement and rejection. It's just a normal part of life. And help us to assert ourselves, not angrily, not with an awful tone, but also with a loving heart, but to say, this is who I am, and this is the road I'm on, and just help us to attune to you and to attune to what's really going on in us, our thoughts, our needs, and our connection and attunement to you. And I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Sit there while I tell you just how beautiful you look tonight. As if you haven't heard me say about 100 times. You shake your head and look away. I promise that I've tried my hardest to let go of this, but every time I think about a world without you in it, my life becomes a darker shade of gray. Hey, hey, and all I wanna do is make you smile. When darkness still ensues, I wanna be alive. Whatever we go through, I'll make it worth your while. 'Cause every minute, every hour, every day I wanna make you smile. Stand and keep on staring while I tell you that you're all I need. And even though I know you know that I'm a fighting breed, I'm gonna keep on showing you exactly what I mean. 'Cause all I wanna do is make you smile. When darkness still ensues, I wanna be alive. Whatever we go through, I'll make it worth your while. 'Cause every minute, every hour, every day I wanna make you smile. If there comes